Hello friends, I have missed you. I do realize I've been gone for quite a long time. It was absolutely unintentional. Nothing happened, it just happened. And I do realize that I'm way late to the party with any kind of 2021 wrap-up, stats, all of that, but I still wanted to put this video out. As we all know, reading can be quite an expensive hobby for us to have, and so I really wanted to still get this video out because it may be helpful for some of you. I wanted to know if paying for book services, subscriptions, specifically for me, Scribd and my library, I do pay for my library card because I'm outside of the city limits of the closest public library to me. I wanted to see if paying for those services monthly is actually worth the money that you spend on them. So what I mean by that is, am I using it enough? Do I read enough books from each of these services for them to at least pay for themselves, equal out, zero out at the end of the year? So what I did is I took my two subscriptions that I had last year, again, Scribd and my library. I pay $50 a year for my library card, which I didn't really have any doubts that the library card would pay for itself because it's very, very easy to spend $50 on a book in a year, right? But I wasn't entirely sure if I would spend enough to pay for Scribd, and certainly not with them combined together. So again, my library card is $50 a year. And last year I paid $9.89 a month for Scribd, which gave me a total of $118.08. And I don't want to talk on the phone. Okay, so back on track. $50 for the library a year. And for a year worth of Scribd, I paid $118.08. So that gave me a combined total of $168.08 just for these two subscription services, so not including the actual books I bought last year as well. What I did is I, of course, did each subscription to find out if they paid for itself, and then I also did overall how much money did it save me together. So what I did is every time I used the library or Scribd for either an ebook or an audiobook, I would write down what I would have paid for that book buying it outright. Okay, so for any ebooks I bought, of course it would have been from Amazon because I have a Kindle. So whatever the Amazon price for that ebook was at the time that I wanted to read it, I would put that down as how much money it potentially cost or would have cost me. For the audiobooks, I mostly used the price on Chirp Books, which is, it's not a subscription, you don't have to pay for it, it's just an online store where you buy audiobooks. And more often than not, they're on sale or discounted at some point or in some way. And so for audiobooks, I found them on Chirp, whatever the price was on Chirp at the time that I was reading the book. If it was not available on Chirp, so if it was only available on, say, Audible, I would use the price it would cost me to buy it from Audible without a subscription. So that's where all of my numbers came from. So every time I used the library or Scribd for a book, I would write down the price of that book or what I would have paid at the time. So in doing that, I thought, we'll start with the library first. The library paid for itself or started paying for itself. So I spent at least $50 on library books in April. So the very first book I finished in April, The Bone Houses, paid for my library card. So every single book that I read from the library the rest of the year, from April on, was free, completely free. I didn't have to pay for those books at all. Scribd took a little bit longer, but it did eventually pay for itself. Let's see, Scribd was the very next month. So in May, Scribd paid for itself. So every book that I read from Scribd from May through December paid for itself. It was completely free. All together, using these two services last year, they saved me $234.09. So that's $234 that I did not have to pay to read the books that I read last year, which for someone with a smaller income, $200 is not a small chunk of change to be saved. So overall, these two subscription services, for me at least, are absolutely worth it. And I'm glad that I have them, and I have them again this year as well. If we want to talk about overall, so I did actually buy books last year, and I spent a total of $289.58 on buying books on top of paying for these subscription services last year. Had I only bought books, so if I bought the books that I bought last year and bought the books that I used from the library or Scribd altogether, I would have spent $691.75 last year total on books. Okay, that's nearly $700 on books. But because I paid for those subscription services and it saved me that $234, my total amount paid for books for my hobby last year was only $457.67. No, 66 cents. A $234.09 savings of books last year. So I would say that they are worth it. And looking ahead for this year, I am doing this again, but I'm adding Audible. Okay, so again, I am doing this again. I want to see how much money it's going to save me again. And I have been, since Audible came out, I have been anti-Audible all the way. It is quite expensive. It's nearly double the amount that I pay just for Scribd alone. So Scribd this year got increased to, I think, $9.99 a month for me, so 10 cents a month, which I did not change on my spreadsheet. To reflect that, I still have the $118, but I'll fix that. And it won't be much more than that, so it doesn't matter. But, so we'll say $119 and some change for Scribd this year. Audible alone is $301.56 for the year. So it's around $25 a month, which is a lot considering you only get 2 popular books a month for $300 a year. So I don't know how well that one's going to work out, but what I plan on doing is a little bit different than what I did last year. So I want to, of course, see how often I use it and if it will pay for itself. But I'm only going to be counting the Audible only books. So any books that I read this year from Audible that are found on either the library or Scribd, I am not counting towards my Audible total to see how much Audible itself is actually worth. Is it worth $300 by itself? So that's what I'm going to be doing this year, and I just as a spoiler alert, and I'm sure you see it up on the spreadsheet right now, I have not used Audible one time this year, and we're almost into March at this point. So I don't have high hopes, but that doesn't mean it's not going to turn around. We still have basically a whole year ahead of us. So we will see. I do hope that this was a little bit informational for you. Maybe it helps you out a little bit. For my budget and where I am, just, I know Scribd may not be available where you live, or you may not have a library and whatnot. So maybe Audible is the best choice for you, and that's absolutely fine, of course. But I want to see if it's worth it for me. So far it's not, but that doesn't mean it's not going to change. Alright, and with that, very short, very sweet, edging back into hopefully being here a little bit more consistently again. But in any case, I do thank you so much for being here and for sticking around, even though I've been gone for quite a while. And I do hope that that means I see you soon.